Dustin Hoffman finally broke his silence, but it wasn't a heartfelt tribute. It wasn't even a nostalgic memory. It was just a bitter truth, one he had ignored for years. I should have reached out, but I didn't. And now, it's too late. These words weren't for just any old friend. They were for Gene Hackman, the legendary actor with whom he shared a connection that was neither a rivalry nor a true friendship. Chapter 1. The storm of silence. Hollywood has names that are forever linked together. Dustin Hoffman and Gene Hackman. Two legendary actors, two friends, or perhaps two rivals? They started their journey together, from the streets of New York to the bright lights of Hollywood. They struggled side by side, they dreamed together. But the moment success knocked on their doors, an eerie silence crept between them, one that lasted decades. Hoffman never hesitated to talk about his fellow actors. He could spend hours discussing Al Pacino, Robert De Niro, Jack Nicholson, and Leonardo DiCaprio. But when it came to Gene Hackman, he remained silent. And surprisingly, Hackman never spoke about Hoffman either. But that wasn't unusual. Hackman was known for staying away from the media. The real mystery was why Hoffman, a charismatic and outspoken personality, never uttered his name. Chapter 2. A friendship built on competition. In the 1950s, under the dim streetlights of New York, two young men were chasing the same dream. Dustin Hoffman and Gene Hackman, both determined to make it in show business. They trained together at the Pasadena Playhouse, faced rejections together, and even shared an apartment. They knew that breaking into Hollywood was no easy feat, but having each other made the journey a little less lonely. Then, fate intervened. Hackman got his big break first. Bonnie and Clyde, 1967, made him an overnight star, while Hoffman was still struggling in minor roles. But then came The Graduate, 1967, Hoffman's ticket to stardom. In the blink of an eye, he was on top of Hollywood. Now they were equals. But the friendship that had once thrived on shared struggles began to fade in the glare of success. Was it professional rivalry? Were they competing for the same roles? Or was it just one of those friendships that drift apart over time? Whatever the reason, the silence between them only grew louder as the years passed. Chapter 3. A regret that will never fade in. 2004, out of nowhere, Gene Hackman retired from Hollywood. No grand farewell, no emotional speeches, he simply walked away. He chose a quiet life in New Mexico with his wife, far from the spotlight. The industry paid tribute, fans mourned his departure, and actors celebrated his career. But Hoffman? He remained silent. Then, the news broke. Gene Hackman had passed away. Hollywood was in mourning. Condolences poured in from all directions. But Hoffman? Still silent. Days passed. Speculations grew. Would he say something, or would he keep his silence forever? And then, finally, he spoke. I should have reached out, but I didn't. And now, it's too late. It wasn't a grand tribute. It wasn't a poetic farewell. It was raw. It was honest. And it carried a weight that no amount of time could erase. Hoffman admitted that there was a wound between them that had never healed, a gap that was never filled. Perhaps they weren't enemies. Perhaps they weren't rivals, but they never got to be friends again either. And by the time Hoffman realized his mistake, it was already too late. Hollywood isn't just a place where dreams come true. It's a battlefield where legends are made and forgotten. The bright lights, the red carpets, the roaring fans, it all fades one day. And when it does, many stars realize they've lost something far more valuable than fame. Real friendships, family, a life beyond the camera. Gene Hackman and Dustin Hoffman, two of the greatest actors of their time. They started their journey together, shared struggles, and once called each other friends. But Hollywood had other plans. Did the industry pit them against each other? Or was their friendship never meant to last, the rivalry that was never spoken about in Hollywood? Talent isn't enough. The competition is ruthless. The industry, unforgiving. Every role is a fight. Every moment in the spotlight can be your last. Hackman and Hoffman were no different. Both came from New York. Both faced rejection after rejection. Both struggled through countless failed auditions and nights wondering if they'd ever make it. Then, their paths split. Hackman's breakthrough came first. With The French Connection, 1971, he won an Oscar, cementing himself as a top-tier Hollywood star. From Superman to Unforgiven, his career skyrocketed. Hoffman's rise took longer. Though The Graduate, 1967, made him a household name, he never felt secure. He wasn't the typical Hollywood leading man. No chiseled jaw, no towering frame. He always felt like an outsider in a world built for rugged, masculine stars. And Hackman? He was the opposite. Tough, commanding, effortless on screen. While Hoffman fought for validation, Hackman's talent spoke for itself. Was Hollywood responsible for their silent rivalry? Or was it just the nature of the business, a competition that never ended? Their careers followed strikingly similar paths, but their personalities? Completely different. Hackman was blunt, no nonsense, and had little patience for Hollywood's games. Hoffman was a perfectionist, constantly doubting himself, always feeling like he had something to prove. Both won Oscars, both delivered iconic performances, both became legends, but neither truly stood together. Hoffman once said, "Hollywood isn't a place for friendships, it's a place where you survive." Maybe that's why, despite their history, their connection faded. They weren't enemies, but they were never friends again either. The loneliness of a legend Hollywood never lets you leave on your own terms. Hackman made his choice. In 2004, without an announcement, he disappeared from the industry. No farewell tour, no retirement speech, just silence. He retreated to Santa Fe, far from the noise, living a quiet life with his wife. Was it his decision? Or was it the only way he could escape an industry that had drained him? Hoffman, on the other hand, kept going. But over the years, his presence faded. The major roles stopped coming. The circle of friends grew smaller. And then, the news broke. Gene Hackman had passed away. Hollywood mourned. Tributes poured in. But Hoffman? He stayed silent. Until finally, he spoke. "I should have reached out, but I didn't. And now, it's too late." It wasn't just regret for Hackman. It was regret for himself. For all the friendships lost. For the moments he took for granted. For the realization that in the end, Hollywood leaves even its greatest stars alone. When a legend disappears, Hollywood has an unwritten rule. Either you leave in glory, or you are forgotten. Gene Hackman chose the latter. Unlike Jack Nicholson, who still appears courtside at Lakers games, or Clint Eastwood, who directs films even in his 90s, Hackman vanished. No award ceremonies, no honorary tributes, no interviews reminiscing about his career. Just silence. And Hoffman? He couldn't understand it. "I never understood why Gene just disappeared. He was one of the greatest actors of our time. And then, nothing." Hollywood doesn't like to remember. Those who step away. It thrives on constant relevance. Gene Hackman? He didn't crave recognition, but that doesn't mean he didn't deserve it, and that's what haunted Hoffman the most. The final curtain call. The time Hoffman spoke up, it was too late. No phone calls, no reunions, no last conversation to mend the years of silence, just regret. "I should have told him, but I never did." Gene Hackman, Dustin Hoffman, Al Pacino, Robert De Niro, Jack Nicholson. These weren't just actors. They were the last of an era where acting was raw, real, untamed. And Hackman, he was different. He didn't play Hollywood's game. He didn't chase fame. He didn't need the spotlight. He only cared about the craft. And when he had given everything, he left, without looking back. His films remain. His performances still inspire. But as time moves on, one question lingers. Did Hackman choose to fade away, or did Hollywood simply forget him? For Hoffman, the answer doesn't matter anymore. The moment to reach out had passed. The silence between them will never be broken. But on But one thing remains certain. Gene Hackman may have left Hollywood, but Hollywood can never erase Gene Hackman, because legends never truly fade.